And Red was a character that I wanted to portray because I felt I do have the power of imagination, but I also felt I had the life experience to play Red. Having been through love and loss and going through, what was going to be my third divorce, and also my father had passed away, and that really stuck with me. And so I knew I had the emotional content to play Red, because Red is really a being who's contending with loss.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Act 2 of Mandy Week. This week we are reviewing the movie Mandy.
Mandy, yes.
Starring Nicolas Cage from the production studio of Legion M.
Mm-hmm.
Very excited. I'm sure you saw in Act 1, we talked very extensively about Legion M.
Right.
And now we're going to do a little bit of a discussion around the
lead actor
of Mandy. But before we do that, Dane, what can our viewers do for us?
Our viewers can happily, with lots of cheerfulness, subscribe! Tell your friends, your family, your neighbor's dog, if he can push a paw up there, he can subscribe. There's a button down over here, big red button. Press subscribe, like the channel. We're trying to get to 1,000. We've been hovering around 145 for a while.
Yeah,
but
if you own a subscription farm, just let us know what we need to do, and maybe you can pop in about 5,000 subscriptions for us.
That'd be very helpful.
Yeah.
But again, by what date?
March 13th.
March 13th. If you post comments by that date, you will be entered into a raffle to win a Blu-ray of Mandy.
Yes. You want to have a
for
copy
free.
Of this. You want a copy of this, and we pay for the shipping. So nothing off, no
taxes.
Skin off your back. All you got to do is make a comment on Mandy.
Right.
Somewhere in the comments by March 13th.
We won't be providing a Blu-ray player, but we assume you have that already.
Yeah, we assume that. And physical media is not dead. You want this in your library.
It is better. I do a lot of streaming, and then when I go over to my compadre's house here and watch one of these, steel Blu-rays that he occasionally cracks open and gently puts into the player with his
white gloves.
With his white gloves. It's like, wow, what a difference that makes.
I'm telling you, I can do a whole episode of why physical media is better than streaming. So, but this week we are going to be reviewing the movie Mandy, and of course the lead actor is none other than Mr. Nicolas Cage.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Nay Coppola.
Yeah, Nick Coppola. He decided to change his name because he didn't want to ride
the nepotism bus.
The nepotism bus of the last name Coppola. So he came up with a cool name, Cage. Based off of Luke Cage.
I guess that's better than, was it based off of Luke Cage?
He's a comic book fan.
Is it? I did not know. I didn't know Luke Cage had been around since that time, because we're talking like 1980.
Luke Cage has been around since like the late 60s, early 70s.
All right, well,
I think I've got a Luke Cage from 1974.
Yeah?
So, yeah.
Do you have any Chuck Spadinas?
No Chuck Spadinas.
Was he a superhero, Chuck Spadina?
No, he wasn't. He might have been the muscle man inside the comic books, asking you to send for his 3-week program.
It was Charles Atlas. Maybe it was Chuck Spadina.
Chuck Spadina.
you don't know what we're talking about, talk to Keanu Reeves about Chuck.
Yes.
But we are also enjoying this fine beverage, Jack Daniel's Tennessee Fire.
Oh.
I guess this time I'm going to pour. Last time in our previous episode,
My new nickname is Heavy Hand.
heavy hands here. I guess I'm just going to go to the level. That was like 3-finger pour.
All right, I'll let Babyface.
Well, I just did 2 this time.
And if you're wondering why I'm calling him Babyface Dane,
Yes, why?
you'll notice something is a little different about his face from every other episode we've ever put out.
Smooth as glass.
Yes.
Smooth as a baby's bottom.
I think Mrs. Dane said,
I wonder if anyone would...
get rid of that.
I'm gonna get cream.
Let Noxie comb in your face. So the razor won't.
The closer you shave, the more you need creamy, soothing, medicated Noxema.
Let Noxie comb in your face. So the razor don't.
You've got a great pair of hands.
I wonder if anyone would have noticed it, by the way, until you pointed that out.
I don't know. I noticed it.
But
immediately.
great. Jack Daniel's Tennessee, cinnamon flavored, smooth, sippable, no aftertaste. Great cocktail. Drink one of these and then throw a cider down at the same time. But what would you like to say about it?
That it doesn't taste fake. So, like, a lot of times when they make these whiskeys, like, Jack Daniel's apple or Jack Daniel's honey, those flavors that they put in, they can't mimic the natural taste of adding honey in there. And they taste fake to me.
Yeah.
But, the cinnamon does not taste fake.
Right, yeah. I mean,
it tastes very good.
Any big cinnamon candy fan when they were growing up, just like Red Hots.
Red Hot,
So-
yeah. Or Jolly Rancher Fire. You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do they still make those?
Yeah, they do. Heck yeah. So,
No, I wasn't a big fan of the Jolly Ranchers versus the Red Hots up straight. But,
oh no, I was a Jolly Rancher
So-
fan. So,
but Nick, speaking about a hot career, Nicolas Cage!
yes, and that had me ponder, since we're gonna do a Nick Cage movie here with Mandy. What were the best Nick Cage movies released? And there's a lot to choose from with Nick Cage, because
I
he does
feel it?
a lot.
Do I hear an Infinity 8
I think,
entering the fire?
I think with Nick Cage, it's almost an infinity lineup of movies to choose from, because the man doesn't say no. The man is
He does not say no. He must have said no once in a while.
Oh, I'm sure. He's indebted to. I'm sure if we called him up and pitched a script, he might say no.
Hey, why don't you make
Hey!
a movie about 2 YouTube guys that go crazy?
Hey, I just invested in a studio called Cult Lord Studio. I put $225 in it, and we're ready to roll, son. Yeah. You think he would take that offer from us?
He might if we give him a really good review. We're not bribable, by the way. We're
That's
not like
right.
those do-back political brother-in-law officials where
Yeah, that's right.
the troopers bribed him. But
Yeah.
yes. So we're going. How many movies has this guy made anyway?
Oh
Is he
my
in
God!
the 60s by now?
I can tell you real quick that he's.
I mean, he's been prolific. I mean, and
well,
the funny
but
thing
tell
is,
him why he does so many. Tell the viewers why, Dane.
Well, I know. No, you would know this, but I know he owes a lot of money to what?
The IRS.
The IRS? Is that what it is?
Yeah, he's behind on his taxes. Like,
But this has been going on for a while. He's still behind in his
something
taxes.
like $50 million. So
What the heck was he doing?
he
just
bought
forgot-
everything in sight. He was like, those are some cool dinosaur bones. How much are they? $2.5 million? Yeah, I'd like to own some cool dinosaur bones.
Was he into comics, by the way? Was he into comics?
He had one of the biggest comic collections. I mean,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
well,
So
as we all know, it takes money to buy a lot of top-notch comics, or but sometimes you just got to follow what you love.
All right.
But this guy's been making movies since what, 19? I think I read he was in a TV show. It was his very first thing in a TV series in 1980, if I remember correctly.
his first-
This is when he was known as Nicolas Coppola, as we've already mentioned.
Yep,
He is the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola.
Actually, his first TV show was in '81.
81.
He showed up as the Best of Times. His very first movie, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was Brad's bud.
Right.
And then
a bit part.
And then right after that, he was in Valley Girl.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's amazing how many people were in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Like Eric Stoltz was in that movie, and
the great Phoebe Cates.
Well, I know she was a great at that time, but then she never went anywhere. I mean, she could have had such a career.
She wanted to be a mom, and she's married to Kevin Kline, and she's like, he makes enough money, and I don't need to be an actor.
He's a great actor too.
Yeah,
you know?
But he has 109 string actor credits.
So he's been in TV and
movie, but mostly movies.
Right, because he did the thing during the pandemic, which was the history of swearing. Did you see that on Netflix? And where he was the host?
Yeah.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
And some of them, like, wow, they're really doing an entire episode about the F word or the S word, and they go into the history of it, the origin, how it's used, etymology, all this stuff. So, but that was great, and it was almost like inspired to have him as the host.
Yeah, he makes a great host for that.
Yep.
So 109 acting credits, and all I'm asking you for, Dane, is what's your top 8 of those?
Only the top 8.
The top
Wow.
8. So we will
Somehow
start
I'm
with
gonna
you.
have to distill this down. It's like a fine whiskey that's been distilled down and run over some cold maple charcoals, and then added a little bit of kick. That's like his career.
Yeah.
So what's my top 8? My top 8.
First of all, do you
First
have
up,
any honorable mentions?
honorable mentions. Well, he's done so many different movies, and a lot of times an actor maybe is not the star of the movie, but the movie was good in its own. So mine are like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and what was another one that I was thinking about? Kick-Ass.
Ooh, yeah.
Kick-Ass, and of course, he should have starred in Fu Manchu and Grindhouse.
Yes, werewolf Nazis, women of the SS.
Yes,
right?
werewolf women of the SS.
Werewolf women of the SS. All right.
So those are my honorable. My number 8, since we're counting down, is Face Off.
Face Off
With Travolta. A gritty crime drama about a crime boss that wants to switch his face with another guy, right? And then Nicolas Cage is like, I think the detective or something, or the cop.
I can't remember that, but I know
It's been a while.
He and John Travolta switched faces somehow.
And they did it because, he found him because he sort of looked like him, and so then they switched faces.
Right.
And it was, Nicolas Cage, because his girlfriend or something was captured, and they said, I'll kill him unless you do it, or there was something with that movie, but it was an interesting take on a crime.
It was a good 90s movie.
Yeah, it's very 90s.
It's very 90s when you watch it today, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but,
like Michael Bay movies. They're all very dated. So what's your number 8?
Well, my honorable mentions, I will mention Leaving Las Vegas. This is where he actually won an Oscar for this. And you're thinking, that's his one time he wins the Oscar. Why is that not in your top 8?
I was thinking exactly that.
And it's because it is so depressing.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's a very depressing movie.
Definitely
but he does
a Debbie Downer.
It is a Debbie Downer. But he was good in it. And it was a good movie. But it just didn't make my top S. And then also in my honorable mention, I did put Werewolf Women of the SS with Nick Cage starring as Fu Manchu. So I like how we put a fake movie in as his honorable mention. So, all right. So my number 8 is Honeymoon in Las Vegas with Sarah Jessica Parker and James Caan.
Yeah.
And this was a really funny movie, a great date movie. He's dating Jessica Parker. They go out to Vegas, and then James Caan is like infatuated with Jessica Parker. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And then so like Nick Cage is trying to do everything he can to like win her back, including joining the Flying Elvises, right? He's in the Elvis con, and he's a perfect Elvis.
He is a great Elvis.
He's a huge like fan of Elvis in real life. So
Where is he?
He does a really good Elvis.
We got Elvis around here. Oh, he's
right over there. So yeah, he does a really good Elvis, and I loved Honeymoon in Las Vegas. It's a really funny movie, and you know what? It still holds up because a few years ago, I had nothing to do on like a Sunday
really?
afternoon, and it was on.
And you had nothing else to watch?
And
so you're like,
I was like flipping through channels, and it was on like a Cinemax or Showtime or something. And I was like, I watched it, and I was like, this was really good. I forgot how good this was. So, honeymoon in Las Vegas.
all right, honeymoon in Las Vegas. That was your number
That
8?
was 8. So going to you for
Well,
number
my
7.
number 7, because as you had said, it's a Debbie Downer, leaving Las Vegas. So it's kind of funny. We must not like downers.
No, I mean,
Unless it's a good payoff in the end. But
yeah.
you
Well,
know.
I mean, one of my favorite all-time movies is The Pianist, which is a downer movie. It's
Yeah, but it ends
It's
on a
the
high note.
Holocaust,
Yeah, but it ends
right.
on a high note.
It does kind of end on a high note, but yeah, you're right. A Debbie Downer movie is tough to put in your top
Right.
8.
Well, because
So,
you want, we naturally watch movies and we want the MCs to win, to vanquish,
Yes.
to get their objective, to whatever. And it's always sad when they don't do it. And that's what happens in tragedies a lot of times.
and
but-
Elizabeth Shue was
Yes.
his love interest, right?
Yeah, and that was like put her on the map for
put-
a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of young men in their teen years
I
or
think
early
he-
20s.
I think he might have been nominated for another Oscar, but this is the only time he's ever won an Oscar.
Yeah.
Was Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a total, for the movies he was doing at that time, it was like the most serious thing he had
Yeah.
ever done. Because I don't think he did anything super gritty. He was doing more comedies, which we'll be getting into, I'm sure. But I mean, a lot of the stuff that he's done over the years has been funny type angles on things.
funny or action or
right,
whatever.
Right,
So.
yeah. So, well, go ahead. What's your number 7?
So number 7 for me is a movie called Wind Talkers. Do you remember Wind Talkers?
I never saw it.
Really? So Wind Talkers is based on kind of a true life story. And during World War II, what the United States Army did was they enlisted a bunch of Navajo
I know this story.
Navajo
Yeah, okay, so that's what it was about.
soldiers because the Germans had basically, they could solve every code, they knew every language, but the one language they did not know was Navajo. They didn't know.
Native
There wasn't
American.
much documentation on the Navajo language.
Right.
So, there was Navajo code talkers, or they called them wind talkers, in lots of different troops. And when the Germans found out that they were using them, because when they would talk Navajo across the channels, they couldn't break the code, they couldn't understand the language. When they heard that it was Navajo wind talkers, there was bounties on their heads. And so every Navajo code talker had assigned security guards. And in this movie, Nicolas Cage is assigned to a wind talker. And his job
okay.
is to guard him and, use
Don't
his
tell me
life.
the end. No spoilers.
Spare his life and make sure he did not die. So
Right.
it was a really interesting movie, an interesting time, an interesting thing that happened in real life, and it was a really good movie. So.
Right. Okay. Well, it's on my list now.
Yeah.
It sounds like my wife would probably like it too, right?
Oh, I think she
Yeah,
would. Yeah,
all
it was a
right,
really
well,
good movie. Wind
always-
Talkers.
Wind
So we got
Talkers.
Number 6.
Number 6 for me, Valley Girl. She's a can't say it.
Yeah.
Valley Girl.
Valley Girl. Like,
Yeah.
gag me with a...
Gag me with a spoon.
right.
Oh my God.
Long ago, an authority said stability in language is synonymous with rigor mortis. And so our language changes, becomes richer, becomes poorer. And now, as Terry Drinkwater reports, there is a new outbreak of Americanisms, and it may be spreading.
Valley talk is migrating across the country.
Like tubular. Well, it's like a totally great day. It's like totally awesome.
Gag me with a spoon.
It's like if you have to work or like do housework and clean your room. It's like stuff like that. It's like gag me with a spoon. It's totally, yeah.
Remember when, we were at the age when Valley Girls, when that came out, we were like 13, 14. And like, I remember girls would say stupid stuff like that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Well, it was a Frank Zappa song that
Yeah.
started the whole thing off, and he
Yeah.
was directly
Yeah.
making fun of.
like Grody to the max,
Running
Dave.
to the max, Dan. And I was explaining this to one of my nieces.
Right.
Like, this song is actually talking about a real thing
Yeah.
that was in the valley in California, in
Yeah.
the valley.
Yeah.
And that's how, like, a lot of the women around, young girls in that area talked.
Mm-hmm.
And so Frank Zappa made a song about it. Well, then all these people wanted to make a movie. So, but they never contacted him, and so he actually tried to sue the company.
Oh, really?
And they've said, well, Valley Girl, you can't copyright that.
Your inspiration was something different, you know.
Right. But it's a very funny movie, very really poignant look at teenage years in the California.
And during the 80s.
Yeah,
the
early great movie.
80s.
It had modern English. It had all these great indie bands
I Stop
in
the
there.
World and Melt With You.
I know, man. I melt with you.
I love that song.
I love that song. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything else near that good.
there was one other song that was okay, but going off subject. During the pandemic,
we never do that.
During the pandemic, Modern English did a what they called a pandemic version where they all got on Zoom and they were all in different places, but they all played their instruments and sang the song.
Oh yeah,
and it's one of the best versions of "Melt with You."
And then did he release it as a single?
They didn't, but just go
look it up.
Just YouTube it.
We'll put the link up here. YouTube Modern English.
Modern English Melt with You pandemic version. So it's really good.
Yeah. So it's a very funny movie. Very, like I said, if you want a little photo, view into the fashion, songs, what was going on culturally, it's a great example of that. So what's your number?
Kind of inspired Madonna's wardrobe too.
Yeah, that's true, because there was a lot of the old, more the sexy shoulders. Unfortunately, in my 80s, they all had bulky shoulders and they're wearing sweatpants.
And then, but do you remember they were always wearing those mesh shirts, with a undershirt underneath it, so you'd have like a fluorescent orange mesh shirt or a black shirt, you know what I mean? And it was like mesh or something,
with neon.
And
and with one ponytail.
Yeah, and a big bow in the ponytail. So,
great example of that time period from a movie standpoint. So what's your number 6?
My number 6 is Snake Eyes.
Ooh.
Brian De Palma. Do you remember this movie? So
no.
Nick Cage
I don't think I've seen this movie.
Oh my gosh. This is one of his greatest. So Nick Cage is kind of a sleazy detective.
Hi, Rick Santoro. Hello, Richard Santoro. Ricky! And I am the king! Pepperoni, sausage, Canadian bacon. Listen, why don't you just get to deluxe and save time, all right? Look, I got business. Call me back in 5. There he is! There's the man whose life I want!
Yeah, but his best friend from high school was Gary Sinise, who went on to become a general in the army. And so they're in Las Vegas.
Lost his legs. No, I'm just kidding.
Lieutenant Dan!
Lieutenant Dan!
So Gary Sinise and Nick Cage decide to meet up in Las Vegas to watch a heavyweight prize fight.
Okay.
And on that night, the Secretary of Defense is killed at the scene of the boxing match. So of course, Gary Sinise is part of the Defense Department. They're investigating what happened, and then Nick Cage is like, "Hey man, I'm a great private eye. Let me investigate." And so somehow Gary Sinise gets him on to the investigation team, and so he starts going in and he starts finding that there's some corruption going on, and some of it involves his best friend. But it's a Brian De Palma thriller, and it's really, really good.
So Snake Eyes, I'm assuming, is the dice, what they're referencing?
Yeah,
okay.
the dice.
Not the G.I. Joe character?
No. Cobra Commander and did not
wasn't
show
there
up.
somebody called Snake Eyes in G.I.?
Yeah.
G.I. Joe?
Yeah, he was he was a bad guy like Ninja. You know what I mean? Worked for Cobra Commander.
Right.
So,
all right. Well, I have not seen that movie, and I'll have to put that on the docket sometime.
So good. Snake Eyes.
All right. Well, my number 5 is Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider. Now, of course, I don't have any of those up here because we're doing Mandy, but classic comic book, been around for a long time, and basically the storyline is Johnny Blaze.
Johnny Blaze
is the Nick Cage character, and somehow has been imbued with
makes a deal with the devil,
and then a demon whenever he gets upset, and conveniently whenever he needs to save somebody, the demon comes out and can ride his motorcycle and full on hellfire. Right. Very bad out of hell.
Well, he embodies that demon and he becomes that demon.
He did. So I had high hopes that movie would really try to keep up.
There was 2 of them.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job in both of them. I think they could have been better, unfortunately, but I still thought they were good movies.
The rumor is that they are going to bring Ghost Rider to the MCU, and it's not going to be Nick Cage. He's a little too old. Guess who they are planning on casting?
Keanu Reeves?
Nope.
Elijah Wood?
Nope.
No idea.
Norman Reedus. Daryl from Walking Dead.
I could see that.
Can you see that?
He's kind of, yeah, I could easily see that. So that'd be cool. I mean, I hope they like make it less comic booky and make it more serious. You know, like if they took the angle the way the comic really is, I think it would have been a much better movie. Right. But there was just a little too much jokiness. Yeah. So, but still an excellent movie. But you know, you got to be into that kind of genre of sci-fi, fantasy, comic book stuff. So
that was your number 5.
That was my number 5.
My number 5, you have already mentioned it in your honorable mention. It is Kick-Ass, and he plays Big Daddy in this, the father to Hit Girl.
Hit Girl, yep.
He teaches Hit Girl all of her chops.
Who had the greatest intro line of all time in a movie.
I don't remember it.
You don't remember that line? I can't say it on camera.
Oh, well, then don't say it on camera.
Unfortunately, but still, for a character to be introduced for the first time on the screen, because obviously in the comic book, it is the greatest line
I don't remember
for a 14-year-old girl to say.
But I do remember how like shocking Hit Girl was in Kick-Ass.
Oh yeah, well if you go back and watch the first line, I'm not going to say what it is, but I'm sure her parents had to fill out a lot of documents to legally say yes, we're okay with this because she was 14 if I remember.
Yeah. And there I do remember now that I'm thinking about it, there was a lot of things she was saying that was like unbelievably raw. Yeah. And like not what you would see a 14-year-old girl say on screen. Right. And so, I bet her parents did have to fill out a waiver.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay for our daughter to do this.
We're not suing if somehow this turns into whole nother thing.
But I love Kick-Ass as a movie because, you know, it's somebody who wants to be a superhero, but no superpowers. None of these people have superpowers. But, you know. Just brains and determination to be superheroes. Right. And, you know, Big Daddy was a big integral part of that first one. Right. And so he was really hilarious in that. So
wasn't the star
of that one, but it is
he had a bigger part.
It is a Nick Cage movie. Yeah.
So, but he, I mean, I love that movie. It's one of my top movies too. I mean, just because I thought that. So here's an example where Ghost Rider and Kick-Ass, they both came from the comic book genre, but where Kick-Ass, the movie, I thought was very close to the way the comic book were. That captured that so well, whereas Ghost Rider like kind of deviated and like Disney made Ghost Rider, you know.
Right. Well, it wasn't Disney at the time when Ghost Rider came out, but all right. So that was my number 5. So we're to your number 4.
Adaptation.
Adaptation. Tell me about that.
Or is it adaptation? Which one is
Adaptation?
No, it's an adaptation.
Adaptation?
So this is one of those where I think he was coming off of Leaving Las Vegas. So he was, you know, kind of big in the movies, you know, movie viewing field that people thought, oh, there's a serious actor, and he consistently did a number of movies before he kind of said, I'm going to just start doing anything.
It is adaptation.
Adaptation, okay. Yeah. And it's about you know who Charlie Kaufman is?
No, tell me about this.
He did Being John Malkovich. He's actually a screenwriter, but he did this consistent run, and I think he does production now, but he does this consistent run of like writing all these top critically acclaimed movies. Okay. So adaptation, he's playing, so Being John Malkovich was a very interesting, you've seen it?
Yes, I've
seen it.
It
was a very interesting angle on like, you know, the screenwriter becoming subversive into the movie actor process. Well, the same thing with adaptation was that Nicolas Cage is playing him as the screenwriter, and he's kind of like writing his own story as it goes along. With like there's a little bit of like a mystery thing, but Meryl Streep's in it. And so, you know, it was just a great example of like a well-written movie with interesting twists and great actors in it, and he did a great job. So highly recommend it.
I have not seen this movie, so I will have to put this on the list because that sounds interesting. So
yeah, it is interesting. It was interesting. So what's your number 4?
My number 4 is National Treasure. So this is the Disney movie, but it's, you know, a spin-off of the Indiana Jones kind of thing. Right. You know, they're into artifacts, but they're into American artifacts of, you know, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. And so there's a map on the back of the Declaration of Independence, which he has to get his hands on, right? And there's only like 5 copies of this, and there's all kinds of clues leading to a secret vault somewhere in the United States that has treasures, and we don't know what those treasures are to begin with, but he says they're going to be unimaginable. But like, you know, it's like almost like it's almost an Indiana Jones thing.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But it's fun.
But they did a great job.
It's fun with like American history because you're learning about Ben Franklin. You're learning about the founding fathers.
Right.
You know, they're in
technology
Philadelphia
at the time.
Yeah, they're in Philadelphia. They're in D.C. They're in New York, and they're showing all these landmarks that were around during the time. So, you know, and there is talk that a National Treasure 3 is going to come out, and that they're going to bring back Nick Cage. So
he's established himself as that character,
yes.
You know, and if he keeps doing it,
they should bring back. Everybody wants to see a National Treasure 3.
I know.
So bring it back, Disney.
I know. Disney's definitely been able to strike gold with that particular genre because, like you said, it touches on all these different history, culture, Americana, patriotism, action, adventure.
And it's PG. You know what I mean?
I forget, in the second one, they didn't bring, what's her name? The blonde Kruger back, right?
I don't remember.
But they brought the other guy back, his like computer.
John Voight?
No, the
Is his
computer.
dad.
Yeah, John Voight, but then the computer sidekick guy. That was in the third guy in that one. So, all right, well, that's your number 4. My number 3 is The Rock. The Rock.
Can you smell what? Oh, not that rock, right? Not that rock.
Not The Rock that goes, ah!
All right. Okay, tell me about
This
The
is
Rock.
The Rock with Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
One of, Sean's like odd movies that he did in the late 80s, if I remember correctly, that was not like his typical stuff, you know.
Yeah.
He plays a prison convict who was one of the few that ever escaped from Alcatraz. And I think it's Ed Harris, if I remember correctly, is the head of a former disillusioned military unit that decides they're going to shoot off a dirty bomb out of Alcatraz with some poison toxins that will cover the city and kill everyone around there. And so Nick Cage, who is the cop, has to convince Sean Connery to work with him to go slip back into Alcatraz.
Right.
And if he does that, he's going to be freed from prison. I'm not going to go, we don't want to spoil it, but a really well done movie. Michael Bay.
Who was the female interest
She
in
is Rebecca Marcel, I think. She was from
Sophie Marceau or whatever.
She's from, it's Rebecca Marcel, I think. She is a big soap opera person.
Oh.
Where is it on there? She's the girlfriend?
Vanessa
Marcel, yeah. And actually, if I remember correctly, this woman might have went to my wife's sorority, but it might be another one from the soap operas.
Oh.
But she was a big...
Do I spend the time to go check out what sorority she... No. We can do that off camera.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But yeah, The Rock, very entertaining. Kids like it too. Just, it's kind of in the same ballpark as the way National Treasure is, with adventure, danger, intrigue. Michael Bay, great director, but man, that guy repeats a lot of things in his movies, and they all look the same, but, still very entertaining.
Yeah.
So, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a movie called Red Rock West. And this is one of the all-time...
Not Red Dead Redemption?
No, Red Rock West. It's such a good movie. And unfortunately, as a big Blu-ray collector like me, this is one of those movies, Dane, that has still never been released on Blu-ray.
No. Well, I have one of those too.
It's from 1993. And have you ever seen Red Rock West?
No, I never even heard of it.
Oh, it's so good. So listen to this. He is kind of like a drifter from Texas, and somehow he goes up to like Wyoming, I think it is, for work. And he's in this small town called Red Rock.
Okay.
And when he walks into this small town bar, nobody knows him. He's an outsider. Well, there's somebody there that thinks because he's an outsider, he is the hitman that he had hired to kill somebody. And so he goes up, has a conversation with him. And he's like, "Oh, did you perform the job? Did you perform the hit that I told you to do?"
Okay.
And Nicolas Cage has no idea what the guy's talking about. Mm-hmm. But when the guy pulls out like a huge bag of money, Nick Cage says, "Yes, the job is done." And so he takes the bag of money. And so now he's trying to get out of town. But he runs in to the real hitman, who is Dennis Hopper.
Oh.
And Dennis Hopper runs into him and realizes, oh, that guy stole my money. So now he's chasing down Nick Cage in this town, trying to kill him and get his money.
This all takes place in one town.
In one small town. And Nick Cage is trying his hardest to get out of this town, and he just cannot get out of this town. He has to keep hiding underground from Dennis Hopper.
How big is this town?
Oh, it's like a town of 2,000. And it's but there's a little bit of weirdness in this that I won't go into. But it is such a great movie. And I remember back in it was in 93 when this came out. I rented this on
You remember this exact thing?
Yeah, I rented this on VHS.
Okay.
From because it was at the time of VHS.
We're gonna have to whip some VHS out here because I don't think some of our viewers might not even know what that looks like anymore.
I rented this from a store, and what happened was, I think I was home for spring break from college, and I rented this and I watched it, and it was so good that I told my mom, "Oh, Mom, you got to watch this movie." And I watched it a second time with my mom, watching it before I went back to college, but it was that good.
Wow.
Yeah. And I do own it on DVD, but I want it on Blu-ray, but that studio needs to get it.
So what's the deal with that? Because we talked about this previously with James Cameron. It's just get off your lazy ass and do the movie. Right. Fix it. Put it out.
This one, I think
it's one thing to be picky and decisive and want something to be done perfectly, but okay.
So there's lots of reasons why movies still have not been released on Blu-ray. The movie you're talking about is True Lies. That's all because of James Cameron telling the studio, "Don't release True Lies unless I oversee the transfer from the original print to digital, right? I want to oversee that and make sure." But he doesn't have time to do that. Right. He doesn't do anything. So that's why it's just been sitting.
I mean, what happens if he dies and it's never done?
Oh, well, I'm sure once he dies.
There's a clause in there that says...
I'm sure they'll do it without him. Yeah. But Red Rock West, I think the reason why this is never made Blu-ray is it was done by an independent studio that then sold the rights to somebody else, that then sold the rights to somebody else. And then there's a lot of hands in the cookie jar about saying who owns the true rights to it going to Blu-ray. Okay. And that's why it's never made it to Blu-ray. Well,
there's a movie on my note. There's a movie called The Keep, which is a Michael Mann movie. I totally know that. Never made it into Blu-ray, it's never been in DVD. Yeah. A DVD even. It's never gone beyond VHS. And I'm like, why? It's a great movie, great concept.
There's some bootleg DVDs out there, but
are there? Yeah. But I mean, I have not seen that movie since it probably appeared in HBO. When they were still playing VHS.
Well, you know what? And we're really going off the subject here, but there's
we never do that.
There were 2 movies last year at this time. I said, man, these are my bucket list movies to come out on Blu-ray, and one was the 1977 King Kong with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange.
I'm surprised that's not.
That had never made it to Blu-ray, and last year. Shout Factory put it out to Blu-ray, and I got it to Blu-ray. Okay. The other one was a movie from '81 called The Sword and the Sorcerer.
With Matt Houston?
I don't remember who started it.
Yeah, I remember that.
But it's never been on Blu-ray. It was just announced last month that in March, Shout Factory is going to put it out on Blu-ray. I've already gone to their site, pre-ordered it, and paid for it. And it comes out next month. So
we'll have to watch that. I haven't seen that movie since probably 1985.
I cannot wait to see it. I remember there was a sword that had 2 other blades, and then you could shoot those blades off the sword. Remember that?
And I think the female, ended up being on the Buck Rogers movie. She was the queen.
Erin Gray. Oh, no, that
the
one,
queen.
Yes. I think Queen Amidala. Not Amidala. That's
man, are we crossing some genres here?
We're crossing
Star Wars
strings,
and the Buck Rogers.
We're doing
Queen Amidala made an appearance on the Buck Rogers.
We're doing what the Ghostbusters said
I think
not to do.
The princess that was in that first one, I think it's the same woman that's in that one.
By the way, I do have the Buck Rogers movie and entire series on a box set Blu-ray if you want to watch. So.
I do need to watch that sometime.
do need to watch
that was the only way I could actually. I had to get 100% on my quiz, Thursday quiz, and then I could watch Buck Rogers that night.
Oh my gosh!
That was, believe me, if you want to be a kid and want to have motivation to get 100% on your quiz, that was the way to do it.
Remember the name of the robot?
Twiggy.
Bit. And then do you remember the name of the thing?
Dr. something.
Dr. Theopolis.
Theopolis, right. And Aaron Gray, of course.
We are really going off topic here on number 3. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Wild at Heart.
Oh, is that with...
That's with the blonde from Jurassic Park.
Kelly...
Blonde from Jurassic Park.
Laura Dern.
Laura Dern, yeah. So there was a lot of... It's a David Lynch movie. So
yes.
And which is interesting because you were talking about Hopper earlier, and he was in Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
And so those two movies have a lot of similarities, Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart, but it was basically kind of like an earlier version of... the Oliver Stone, where the something killers, natural born killers. It was not that exactly, but it was that kind of sentiment. But there was a lot of like Mulholland Drive, like
that's David Lynch.
Yeah, another David Lynch. But I mean, it was just a lot of like symbolism and weird things going
I loved about that movie?
like what
I loved about that movie, and I have this on Blu-ray if you want to see it.
Yeah,
but. There was a couple of love scenes with Nick Cage.
Yes, and they were like funny.
And they were fun. But she says to Nick Cage, "You've got me hotter than Georgia asphalt." I will never forget that line. You got me hotter than Georgia asphalt.
I just remember this face he had where he was like, "Arr!
Yeah. So I like that movie actually.
Yeah.
So didn't make my top 8, but it was.
Was that my number deuce?
That was your number 2.
What's your number 2? Drop me a deuce.
My number 2, we've already talked about it. It was The Rock. And Sean Connery and going back to Alcatraz Island. And then there's always that scene where I think Nick Cage was on the island and he had a flag, some planes or something. He's got the what are those sparkler kind of things?
Those, flares.
I already dropped them.
Flares, and he's like on his knees doing this, and planes fly over. Of course, that's a total Michael Bay thing. You know what I mean? So
a lot of slow motion, like yeah. Michael Bay and John Woo have a lot of similarities with the way they do things. And unfortunately, it gets tiring after a while because you're repeating like the same thing, the same cinematic camera shot over and over again.
You know what's interesting? So that's my number 2. So we're up to number 1, and before you get to number 1. There's a movie you haven't mentioned yet, and I haven't mentioned yet. I'm just wondering if we're going to have the same number 1s, because if you don't have this in your top 8, I'm like wondering what the heck is going on. So, what, Dane? We are up number 1.
Well, my number 1 is National Treasure.
Oh my God.
So no, I don't have anything. That was it. Number 1. Sorry to take the air out of your bubble there.
He's like, be totally different. All right, don't look at this now.
Wait, I want to look at your thing. Hold on.
Hey,
I don't look at your thing.
That's what she said.
Keep it in your pants.
Okay.
But no, National Treasure. I mean, you touched on it. Like, there's so much history in there, adventure. Kids love it. I mean, just because they're learning stuff from it.
Right.
And then you'd learn it too. Like there's, I mean, we all know about Ben Franklin and the Constitution and all these things, but they threw things in there. They're like, I never heard that before. And they made it believable.
Yeah.
It wasn't like total sci-fi crop where you're like, there's no way Ben Franklin could have like a time warp machine.
Yeah.
I mean, but they had like those, they spent a lot of money on that movie doing the sets and the props and stuff. So I gotta
remember who the bad guy was in the first one?
Well, wasn't there like a chasing bad guy, then the ultimate bad guy in the background?
No, there was just one.
No, who was it? I don't remember.
Sean Bean. Remember Sean Bean?
Oh, yeah.
Who played Ned Stark from Game of Thrones?
Yeah, but I thought he was there was somebody behind him still. Like he was the guy that was sent out to go find them, but there was somebody behind him.
Maybe.
Kind of like in the French guy in the Indiana Jones movies, where he wasn't the main bad guy. There was other.
Who was the main bad guy?
In which?
In Indiana Jones.
Hitler? No.
Yeah, it was Hitler. it would indirectly be Hitler. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Hitler. What would the world do without Nazis?
I know.
Every movie ever made.
I know.
So what's your number one?
Well, now I want you to guess. You'll get it.
Of Nicolas Cage movies?
Yeah.
That we haven't already talked about?
I can't believe you don't have this in your number 8.
That he starred in?
Yes. He's the star.
8mm?
No. That's with Al Pacino, and that's a good movie. Kind of a freaky movie. Snuff films.
Yeah, that was, or it was 35mm, wasn't it?
No, it's 8mm.
You say it, but I mean, I can't think of what it is that I'm missing.
Gone in 60 seconds!
Oh.
Suspect has increased speed to 120. Maintain visual, Air 1. 140 miles an hour. Do not lose him. This is an A-Star, sir, not an Apache. 150. 160. He's gone.
I actually have not seen that movie.
Well, no wonder it's not in your top pick.
That would
How
be.
can you not see Gone in 60 Seconds?
I don't know. It kind of came out at a weird time, and so that was when people went to the theater to see things, but I haven't seen it. I don't have a 5,000 Blu-ray vault.
Yeah. So Gone in 60 Seconds. It's about, this guy. He's known for jacking cars and stuff like that, but he's like indebted to the mob. And
not the IRS?
No, this one to the mob.
That would be an interesting take on him.
And the mob says, we are going to kill you, we're going to kill your brother. Unless you can deliver 100 cars to us in a single day.
Oh, okay.
And so he goes out and he enlists all of the best carjackers he knows. And they go to this warehouse and they get the list of like all these cars.
And so there's specific cars they have to
They
jack.
are specific cars.
It's not like go drag a Nova off the street.
No.
Okay.
It's like, we want this specific Rolls Royce that belongs to this movie actor with his VIN number. And they have to like tie all the VIN numbers. And so what they do is they go to a chalkboard and they write down all 100 cars that they have to go get. And they've got like maybe a crew of 20 in there. And they split up the responsibilities. You guys are going to get this, and in this order. And they like know where the cars are going to be, like in this garage, or it's going to be at this movie premiere, or it's going to be used here. And so the number one car is Nicolas Cage's like idol car. I think he actually tried to carjack it once before. But it was like an old, like 60s Mustang.
Like the John Wick Mustang? A hatchback?
Named Eleanor.
Oh.
So it was called Eleanor. And so he says, that's my car, that's my responsibility. So they have to get them into these containers on a ship to go out, off
Saudi Arabia or something like that?
It's like Saudi Arabia or something. And so they're like driving all these cars. I mean, in, Hummer, Corvette, like classic Corvette, Porsche, and they're just driving them on as they're stealing them. And it's so funny how they totally go and get all these cars. Like some of these guys dress up like as a valet because they know this guy's going to go out for dinner that night. And they valet his car and they take it, So, but yeah, and his co-star is a young Angelina Jolie.
Oh,
very attractive in this, and so it's exciting adrenaline kind of movie.
60 seconds?
Gone in 60 seconds.
Is it? And I'm assuming that there's a time countdown. Like,
oh yeah, there's a 24-hour clock going backwards. And
those always make the best movies.
Yeah.
When there's a ringer about to go off at the end.
Yeah. So what happens is there's some local police that after several of these cars go missing, like within 24 hours, they realize something's going on. So I can't remember who plays the cops that are after Nicolas Cage.
Harvey Keitel?
No, I can't remember, but they're after Nicolas Cage, and they're trying to stop him from this. But what a great movie. I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah, well, as we've already touched on, Nicolas Cage has done a lot of movies, a lot of great ones, some bombers, but we're going to be talking about Mandy here for Act 3, so stick around for our up-and-coming show. You can win this. Please subscribe.
Yep.
learn more in the next one, and let's go.
Well, before you do that, to win these, you have to put in a comment. And what I would like to know is, was there a Nick Cage movie that we totally missed out on that we should have in our top 8? Put that in the comments, and that will enter you into a drawing for the copy of Mandy on Blu-ray.
On this date, I think it was March
13th.
March 13th.
March 13th. If you do that by, you can win a copy of Mandy and have a new Nicolas Cage movie added to your library. And see if that makes your top 8.
Or maybe you would like to just put it right next to your pillow and go to sleep with Nicolas.
If you can sleep with that next to you. I challenge you.
Some people might find that very soothing.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for watching Act 2. Top 8 Nicolas Cage movies. We will see you in Act 3, where we review the movie Mandy.
So what you want?
Crazy evil.